So lots of fun there out on the Specialized Roubaix Expert 2020 yesterday, a demo bike that all three of us picked up from Sea Otter. So more of an endurance bike than a road bike, not quite a gravel bike.
No, you couldn't really fit, I don't think anything more than 32s in there, so yeah, you'd probably need something a little bit fatter for gravel.
So this is our second bike review / demo bike discussion we've done this week. So what we're covering today is the tech specs of this bike, which it has a few interesting little things that I want to talk about. Then we'll cover the ride, our experience of the bike, and our pros and cons at the end here. So the tech specs of the bike, it's quite an interesting one. It's a 2020 edition, which is quite early in the year, still being only April. So 2020 edition. Technical specifications top to bottom of the bike. So the bike is running a Ultegra Di2 R8050 Groupset, but it's the 8070 because it has the hydraulic discs on the front. Carbon frame, obviously. The version we had was the Expert, not the S-Works or the Pro, but it was the Expert, so the specialized carbon layup. 160mm rotors front and back, lots of stopping power on the bike. Big discs. The Roval C38 disc wheels with specialized Turbo Pro 28mm. Now, we've thought they were a little bigger tyres than 28s.
They looked enormous.
They were very fat balloon-like. I mean, they stuck to the road really well. I've had 70 PSI in mine. That was fine for what we were riding. The reason why the 28s looked so big is because they had a 21mm internal track on the Roval wheels, which pushes the tyre out a little bit, which makes it a little fatter than what you'd have on a standard wheel. Next up, compact crank 50-34, up the back 34-11 on the Cassette, and an RX rear derailleur with a clutch. Now this is for rough roads and gravel. This is something road bikes have adopted from the mountain bike scene.
Yep, absolutely. Saves those chain stays quite a bit. Definitely keeps your chain on.
So the clutch mechanism is a little manual switch that when it's switched up, it's really hard for chain slap to take. So built for off-road, gravel, well, obviously Roubaix, cobbles will make the thing. That's what the bike's all about. So it has one of those up the back. The saddle was an interesting choice from Specialized. Comes with the power saddle with titanium rails. I'm familiar with the saddle, so it was nice and comfortable for me. Why do you think they would have gone with the power saddle over the Roman or the Toupe? Are they still around, or a bit of a strange choice?
Could have just been availability. Yeah, I think they just released the bike last week, so it could have just been one of those things that they just got on there.
We have a warehouse full of these saddles. We can just put them on. It's a great saddle. Don't get me wrong, and I run that on my road bike. But for a more of an endurance bike, probably not a saddle like that. Interesting choice. I found it comfortable. That was all good.
Absolutely.
And finally, the other major component of this, which a lot of people had focused on. Now there are articles on this across the cycling media. Cycling Tips have an article on this bike, and they focus a lot on the Future Shock 2.0, which is a little shock dampening system under the stem, on the head tube, just above the head tube. It's the steerer tube.
Yeah,
that's the word I'm looking for. That you can turn on and off with your top cap. It's got the top cap dial. Very unique. Have you used the original, I think it was, obviously this is Future Shock 2, the Future Shock 1, the original, did you use that one at all?
I did not use the original, but I have tried some other stem suspension systems, and it was interesting. What was your take?
It wasn't as bad as the first version. The first version, Veronica, my wife, had borrowed a bike and I rode up and down just finding out what it was all about. It felt very, very bouncy, and I think that's what they've addressed with Future Shock 2.0 being I think it's hydraulically dampened, but it didn't bounce up and down. The reason why, the way I test the bouncing is to sort of bunny hop the bike along, and you sort of get that doing like you do on some older school mountain bikes. But this was fine. It sort of hit the ground and didn't rebound back. So it just absorbed the bumps, away we went. The roads that we rode on yesterday really weren't that bumpy, so I locked it out. I did try to make it as soft as possible. There are 8 or so settings,
which is really nice.
which you can really dial that in.
Exactly, yeah.
But I went from
terrain.
one extreme to the other. I went to the extreme softy mode and sprinted out of the saddle. It was very, just as you'd expect, very not quite meant for that. But locking it out up the hill at the end there, we were reaching the top of the hill. I took off. That was that was all good to go. So pretty good overall. So specs wise, that's the bike. As for our ride, for me, I'd hate to say, but Ray and Des both saw it. I had the biggest smile on my face. I'm like, oh damn it. And the reason that I loved it, because it was the same as my SL4 that I used to race back in that. So the 54, it felt the same. I had the power saddle, which I'm familiar with. Ultegra Di2. The saddle height was perfect after we moved it around a little bit, and we'll speak about that at the end, about the saddle clamp. It felt like returning back to my race bike from you. I love the thing.
I was quite surprised when you said that, just because he obviously likes quite a bit of drop with his bike. So, for a more endurance bike, it's going to be a little bit more upright because of that endurance, theme to the whole thing.
Yep.
But I was really surprised to hear that. And actually, funny enough about the Future Shock, that's the one interesting thing too, is that because of that Future Shock, you can't necessarily slam your stem all the way down, because it's going to have that, I don't know, about maybe 1.5 inches or so of room beneath your stem and the top of the steer tube. So yeah, that's I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah, well, having ridden the gravel bike the other day, the giant Revolt, the Revolt. Give me call a bike of Roubaix. That's cycling and passion and the Revolt. No. Anyhow, that aside, that bike was quite upright. We've had an upright bike or a more relaxed geometry bike the other day with lots of heads. So I was sort of used to being up here for the last week. So I didn't notice the non-drop too much. But out of the saddle, just that flipping the bike, it wasn't the lightest bike. It was quite weighty, but we didn't really feel that.
Was it stiff enough for you?
It was.
Okay.
It was. The front end, a little bit. It wasn't the front end. You saw me doing a bit of wiggling on the front end, but that absorbs a bit of the road bumps. Yeah. I'm not into sales or anything like that. I'm not into sales pitching, but
no,
I really enjoyed that.
Yep.
I did. The sprinting, as you were taking off on me a few times, Des was flying up hills this week. So chasing Des down, the bike rode really well, wheels nice and stiff. But I think that's more about being familiar with Ultegra Di2. Double clicking, I put it into Synchro 1 mode by just double clicking the junction button. So I had my Synchro 1 on, so I was familiar with the shifting. We spun out a few times on the compact crank on the road because it's only the 50 up the front. So yeah, your take on the bike, Des? Just the ride feel, the experience?
I quite liked it. So yeah, I mean, I went through quite a few bikes over the course of this weekend, and actually, funny enough, I came directly off a Pinarello F10 to this bike, and it performed surprisingly well, considering the bike I just rode the day before. So very stiff, very comfortable. I had my tire pressure probably a little bit too high, so I didn't take advantage of the 28s as much. But there were some potholes and whatnot that, I was okay with a little bit higher tire pressure. The Future Shock, for me, that one's a tough one. It's going to be either the balance of a fatter tire or having that Future Shock. So I think that, considering these were just 28s on there, I could definitely see that. So I think it's a great idea. How much cost it adds to the bike, that could be debatable.
And that's what we'll get to now, the cons of the bike. So first of all, so for me, that was a thumbs up for the ride feel and the experience of that. We did the 40-kilometre or the 17-mile loop. It ended up being 40 kilometres. I can't do the math in my head, but it was a beautiful coastal route.
It was 25 miles or so.
There we go. Dat price, $6,000 US.
No Durace. This was Ultegra.
Ultegra, and this is not S-Works. It's Specialized. And one thing that got me, no wireless Di2 unit. They are an additional module. They're an add-on. But I couldn't tell the Di2 battery on my head unit. Something as simple as that. Now the SRAM Force Axis, ETAP Axis the other day, has that all built in. So when I put my bolt that I've been carrying around with me this week onto the head unit of the bike, paired that up to the Groupset, I can see the battery status and everything. I think in 2019, with a 2020 spec'd bike, is it too much to ask for being able to see the battery life on your head unit?
Yep.
You can do the Morse code signals as you turn things on and press buttons and find out. But that's, I haven't bothered to look at that. Have you looked up the...
No. And not to say that ETAP Axis is cheap by any means either.
Oh no, you're definitely paying for the privilege of having that information displayed in the whole group set. But just the usability side, like pricing aside, user experience.
Yes.
I just
it's all
that,
just built in. Yep.
Yeah, and even knowing what gear you're in, it was kind of nice to look down. Fair enough, it's just data for data junkies. It is about riding the bike. But that would be just nice to have. And that seat post clamp. Specialized.
Just, inconvenient. I mean, it looks stealthy, looks pro, hard to get to. And actually, I think you had some prior experience with that?
Oh, yeah. So I've got the SL4 has a seat clamp. Lovely. Seat clamp. Any day of the week. Give me a seat clamp. Veronica has the SL5, or the new tarmac, which was the SL5. That had a really weird wedge system inside it, that if you took your seat post out to travel, you needed to put something in there so that the little wedges didn't fall in and fall away. And they're all held together by an elastic band, a little tiny, which can...
Inevitably,
Horrible design. Again, aero and pretty. This one, I don't quite know exactly the mechanism that was in play for this one. I didn't really want to find out because I had to move the saddle up a little bit because I had the 54 size bike. I love a smaller frame, put the saddle up, put the saddle back, put the stem out, more twitchy frame. That's just my preference for road bikes. And that's what I had here yesterday. You've got to up the seat though, I had to take off the plastic cap on the top, and then there's this bolt that is connected to the wedges down below. Now, I didn't want the thing to fall down the seat tube because then I wouldn't be riding bikes for the day. I don't know.
It was really close to the actual seat post too. So a multi-tool, I mean, and you should definitely be using a torque wrench, but even with torque wrenches, they may have a little bit larger head on them, which could interfere with that. So, just a few little nitpicky things there, because it's not all happy days. It was a good ride and all, but just one of those general maintenance things. If we were traveling with that bike, do you need a little spacer inside that? And for an entire bike to be dependent on a little wedge system, I'm not quite sure, like the SL5, but I don't know. Having said that, I'm sure it's an easy one to fix, and I'm sure you could go to a specialised dealer and find maybe some spares to carry if you're that paranoid like I am about those kind of things. But that was just, that's where new school doesn't meet old school expectations. Yeah, sure.
But either way. Any other words and notes on the ride?
I really quite like I said, I really quite liked it, especially coming off of something that was probably twice as much the day before. I thought it was a great ride.
And Ray had a 61 centimeter frame.
It
was massive. He fitted on it. If you see Ray's, the side profile of Ray on a bike, really long legs, short torso, triathlete style, reach out. Ray looked like that bike just fitted him just nicely. So I think we've got a few shots of Ray we can put into the video here, of Ray having fun on the bike there. But anyway, there we are. Another demo of a bike that we're over here from Sea Otter. So great opportunity to grab a bike. If you're ever at a trade show or a bike demo day, definitely go in, ride more bikes, see what's out there. I was very surprised at this because I've gone and bought the giant TCR, which I love. I jumped on this bike. I might love it even more, but let's just not tell Giant that.
Trade shows can be very expensive though. Because I rode some fantastic bikes this week, and I'm coming back going, I may need to upgrade my road bike. I'm not sure.
But I think most importantly, don't tell Vaughn that I like another bike. All right, with that, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming along, Des, and thanks for the drive.
Thank you.